Well, hi everybody. Welcome to another Tavern Talk. That totally wasn't delayed at all. We've been doing these all the time. Yeah. Art is not here right now. Art is working on some stuff. Um, One of those small team blues. There's enough of us that Devin and I can hop in here, and everybody else is keeping their heads down so we can make content. A little bit of a different format this time. I think Devin and I are just going to talk about some stuff. What we're doing, kind of cover some basic areas, go over what we've been up to, and then get to these Q&A questions that, and thank you for getting those questions together in such short notice. We appreciate that. I know you guys have a lot of questions. So we'll get the chit chat part of this over and then get to your guys' questions. Some of those questions might get answered in just Devin and I talking, but if not, please don't hesitate to re-ask something in chat. For the second part of this, Mello's going to kind of go through the questions and then tee up the questions that are from the previously asked stuff that were upvoted, and then go from there with any additional questions from chat. So that's kind of the format we're going to have for this time. The first thing I think we should talk about is just kind of queuing up what we're doing, where we're going, what we're working on right now, maybe some new things that people can expect. The first off is let's talk about the current event and kind of the lead-in. Some of this is kind of a story-driven piece. We can talk about why we're doing stuff. We can talk a little bit about the first thing is, when is the next region going to come? This is the new content we've been talking about subtly for like the last couple months. So we are still aiming for December. It's not going to be December 2nd. We've just got some things to polish that we need to spend a little bit more time doing to get them to feel right. But this is an entirely new area. The Ainur that you all love and know, as you know, is going away. But there will be new adventures in a new land that follows kind of the narrative close of the current area, which was the culmination of irritating Balramos too much. He is still going to play an important part in the story, as you'll find out. But this move off to new lands from the evacuation of Ainur is kind of where the story picks up now. So with it being an entirely new area with an entirely just pretty much new everything, that still takes a while to iron out. And so we're working as hard as we can on that. We are still aiming for December. So along with that news of not being there on the 2nd, it's like, what are we going to do instead? So we are bringing back all of the holiday content for the people that missed it. So this is going to be the Gromsh. This is going to be able to collect the holiday gear, the holiday decorations, all that stuff is coming back. We're adding a couple new little things in there too. And we are keeping the Fisher event live for the people that didn't quite get a chance to finish the quests to get the titles. And there will be a holiday title that's available as well with a new quest to go after the Gromsh for those people that remember him. We're moving him to a different spot though, so people who remember where he was in Ainur will have to re-find him. Yes, there's going to be a new holiday title for killing the Gromsh if you can find him and completing that quest. Yeah, he is kind of he's one of our funner world boss people. Yeah, the pain in the ass to fight. I like him. That's okay though. All right, then the next piece about that is going to be the big question, which is, well, what's coming and kind of why are we focused on these efforts? What is the reason really that we decided to blow up Ainur and kind of start with a new area? The no BS answer to that is that Ainur is huge, and it was kind of how we were learning about developing this product and this project. This has been the same area that we've been working on since alphas. We have learned a lot, and some of those lessons to continue to scale the game we want to, we just have to do world design differently. Different type of environments, different lessons we've learned about optimization. And so we could spend a whole bunch of time trying to retrofit the current place that the game takes place in now, or start over and continue the storyline. And we opted for option B. That's kind of why we're going into a new area, and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that I'm excited to share that we can expect, that you guys can expect about what's coming. Um, we are, as you know, a small team, so we are more focused now on taking the lessons that we've learned and applying them to a scoped size to deliver a game that feels better, that's kind of more cohesive. So want to address like those complaints that like there might be a few features and things happening in here and there, but nothing really feels like the way it should, and we agree. So we're narrowing that down. And so like this relaunch is just kind of like we did the phases of these events for the destruction of Ainur. We're going to be phasing the new content in as well. So the first chunk that's coming, it's scary to say like, oh my gosh, it's 4 of the 8 zones in the new place, which takes our adventurers to level 10. But the number of quests and the new features and the new things to do in that is actually more than that's in the game right now. So it's a much fuller environment. We finally unlocked like new ways to do quests. We've had to rewrite a lot of, not rewrite, but we've had to write um, just different quest mechanics, different things to do. So everything is not just kill and talk to somebody. That gets boring pretty fast, as you guys have shared in the feedback, and we listen to that. So more things to do with quests, different ways to do things, an actual cohesive storyline that makes sense on a narrative arc that is very clear about why the players are where they are and what they're trying to do. You'll see that, along with a ton of new quality of life features, things that I've teased before, things that Devin has teased before, like the ability to reach out and pick up a sword off a table, or the ability to have quick slots and better inventory management and better UI, and but like a lot of things that felt super unpolished before are the type of things that we're hitting, along with advancements in things that you can do in the game. Um, so that's kind of, and then Devin, I know there's a whole bunch of stuff you're excited about on your side
Oh
of the
yeah,
fence.
we've done so much, dude, and a lot of this comes from we. I know we tend to kind of get really heads down and focus a lot on development, and sometimes in the past, especially in the past when I had first started here, there was a lot of talk of you guys went quiet and didn't tell us what's going on. And then we dropped the game and we went early access and everybody played it and they were like, wow, this is really buggy and it's got a lot of problems. And over the months after that happened, we spent a lot of time patching bugs and trying to figure out how to get things into a better spot before we moved on. And we got to a point where the biggest thing that we had heard was that the world is too big, nobody can find their friends. And we kind of all agree that that was a
100%.
little bit goofy. And we didn't have the proper gameplay reasons to focus players into an area together so that they can find each other. And so that was kind of the fuel for why we decided to redo the main region. And so we've got a lot of plans for a lot of folks had questions about, you know, where's our player hubs, where are our towns and cities, and that's kind of where we started with. We were like, okay, we need this, and we need it to be purposeful. And that's kind of what we're working on now, because in the past we had big towns and cities that were fun places to explore, but there was no reason to be there. And so we are kind of coming back to, you know, we want a hub area that there's a lot of players in VR games that like to just sit and hang out. And so we're kind of giving space for that, as well as giving a hub for crafting and for like travel. So you're going to come back to this place and it's your hub where you can go, okay, there's an airship tower over here and I can get on this airship to go to the next place. I can also come here for crafting as things are getting introduced. We've been working very hard on harvesting and cooking so that we can kind of show what crafting is going to look like in a VR-ified way.
Yeah, and I've teased before, and you and Art have teased before that cooking is the first profession that we're doing, and that is an intentional thing. I know a lot of people are looking forward to like blacksmithing and alchemy and leatherworking. There is a method to the madness, and the reason cooking is going to be, and cooking is not a later phase. Cooking happens with the release of Levea. It's under active test right now. Um, the rules that we're using in cooking for the code, and that's another fun thing about this project is there's lots of tools and stuff, especially in Unity projects, that you can download so many different kits and things and this off the asset store, but all of that becomes meaningless when you're trying to do something that's not client side only. So if you add server authority, it makes it infinitely more complex, and then adding VR on top of it makes it insanely complex. So we have to do this intentionally and carefully, and so we chose cooking because it has those elements. You have to gather resources. You have to discover recipes. You have to execute recipes. You have to do something fun in VR with it, or at least a little bit intentional that's not just clicking on a menu on a flat screen. If we wanted crafting to be just flat screen, it would have been in, 2 years ago. But we want it because this is a VR game. We want to do something in VR. So you'll see with cooking when you all get to play it that there is an active pan. Yes, the pan is no longer the flying pan though. It is a regular frying pan. I'm sorry to disappoint everybody that got to play with the first frying pan that let you fly over mountains. We fixed that bug. But there is a pan in the game. You have to get the pan. The pan has spots in it that you'll use for cooking, and you have to actually put the ingredients. Trial and error. You can discover new ingredients. You can read ingredients. You can hear ingredients from other players. But you can expect that along with this cooking being a profession. And to finish the thought though, like you've got to cook this stuff over a fire and use the pan. And there is a small mini game that you have to play to get the recipe you want to cook correctly, or else you're going to have a bad time. And actually you'll just end up with something we call dubious food, which you may or may not want to eat. But the main point is though, this lays the groundwork a lot for the other crafting and what we kind of envision for the loop of crafting in Ilysia. Ilysia is not a crafting simulator. Ilysia is an MMORPG. So for people expecting like deep, complex crafting of needle stitching stuff together and making a backpack out of 17 different parts, we're not a crafting simulator. You're going to have to get raw materials, and you're going to have to mix those raw materials in a certain way to get the product that the end result that you're looking for. So the beginnings of blacksmithing, in a sense, are actually going to be in Levea a little bit. The first thing you have to do for blacksmithing is mining. And there is a certain quest that you'll do in Levea that if people that are paying attention, you will see the beginnings of the mining code, which is kind of cool. You do have to go use a pickaxe and get things for a quest line, and then but yeah, so that's why cooking was first, and we're super happy that we're bringing it out. Blacksmithing will likely be next. The assets are all done by and large for blacksmithing. That's probably why it's going to be next. I mean, the forge is ready, the materials are ready, better weapons and stuff like that are ready. But I'll leave Devin to talk about that in a little bit from the art side. But yeah, so cooking is just one small thing you can expect along with those quick slots, and leveling things too. Fishing has changed. Everything has progression levels now. So cooking is something that you can't just do. You can discover recipes, but they may or may not be too hard, and you'll gain skills and levels in cooking. Fishing is now the same thing. To get better at fishing, you should just fish, and you'll watch your level in fishing increase. Same thing with harvesting and gathering things in the world that you need for cooking, whether it be picking mushrooms or harvesting certain different types of raw meats, or fishing, combining fishing and cooking. I think there's like gonna be about 40 recipes in the region of Levea for you to discover in cooking overall through all 8 zones that do different things, and we have low quality food, we have dungeon quality food, that kind of recipes and stuff. I'm not going to talk about toka meat. We don't talk about that. It may or may not be there. It was a conflicted discussion, but yeah, I'll leave that one alone.
I think at some point we decided toka tastes like gator.
Exactly, right? I mean, there was some other, and the Toka Bell is coming back. I mentioned that in chat. Toka Bell does have a home. He will be making a triumphant return. You'll see him in the second phase of the launch of Levea. So not in the first 4 zones. He is post zone 4, which is where the current content will stop after the first dungeon. but he will be a second half vendor. Um, as far and like you were saying, Devin, as far as layout and stuff goes, this is that hub city vibe, and that's where like all these crafting things and cooking things. You can cook anywhere in our world where you can find an appropriate heat source, and they're very obvious. And so later will allow you to also build your own heat source, so you can cook where you need to. But there are a lot of places to cook right now, but there is still one main hub area in all of Levea. And towards what Devin was saying, we're doing that intentionally to bring people together. You can make return trips there. It's kind of, and it fits with the narrative. For all intents and purposes, the players, you all are visitors to Levea. You're refugees from Ainur that landed in Levea, and you'll hear and see and feel that vibe from the locals in Levea who are accepting of your, are willing to host you. But that kind of plays into the narrative of why you're kind of set up in one central area, because that's where you kind of landed, and you've got to be nice and help people out, and kind of all hands on deck. But yeah, so that's what's up with that.
There's kind of just a
Dev,
massive info dump. There's so much to talk about.
there's so
I want
much.
to point out,
And that's why, yeah, I'm sad we haven't done this more. And
yeah,
I know I should do like I'm I can you guys can blame me for that. I keep the team pretty busy. Like there's just so much work to do, and I need to make more time for community feedback. And um, I'm going to be better about that. I've spoken with Art and Xander about that, and they all agree that we need to be better about that. Devin, you agree that we need to be better about that. And you all deserve it. I mean, you guys have hung in there. It's been more than a minute since you guys have been here supporting us. And I like the ideas about just more regular tavern talks in general, even if it's just an open Q&A session instead of having like a specific set topic. But really, if we're not keeping up a dev blog like we used to, this is kind of the best way to do a dev blog, because I don't remember who said it. Somebody said it in chat, uh, that the Tavern Talks or any sort of format like this are just going to be better, because every time that Devin comes in or I come in or Art comes in and we type something, it scrolls off, and then you come back 20 minutes later and we might as well have never been there. So I don't think that counts. And we rely on our community a lot for the people that are around here to kind of like, oh, they answered this question earlier, oh, they said that. But it doesn't help the vibe for new people. It doesn't help the vibe for people kind of just wanting to know what's going on, for us to be here for a minute and then leave in Discord and have it just scroll away. So y'all are absolutely right. We're gonna try and do more of these and not get so buried in the weeds. And it's not really weeds. That's a wrong word. And I don't mean to belittle the work you're doing, Devin, at all. Or we're all
there's a lot
working
of
on
it.
stuff that's important. It's not the weeds. But it is very easy. And even from a development perspective, um, we all wear a lot of hats. And while I don't write code, I do like a lot of the QA, and help run the dev meetings, and just so much testing and design and all that stuff. And we
Yeah,
all wear so many different hats that it's very easy for us to get lost in the work, because this is one of those jobs where it doesn't matter if it's Saturday or Sunday or 2 a.m. on a Friday, you're probably thinking about it.
yep.
And that's just
It
kind of
doesn't get really get
the
put
way it
down.
is.
We're just doing it.
No. Yeah. I mean, but that's passion, and that's
Yep.
that's one thing that I feel like we share in common with the community, with you all too, is we're straight up passionate to be here, or else we wouldn't be here. This is not some lucrative venture for us. I mean, I have no problem talking about, we the revenue we get from game sales is just kind of there to help pay for the servers, but it doesn't honestly even cover the cost of running Ilysia for a month, and that's not what's important to us right now. If money was important to us, we'd be trying a bunch of underhanded stuff. We're doing what we're doing because we're passionate about this project and we want to see it in, and that's kind of why we narrowed this scope down. We have big visions. We want to do a lot of stuff, and trying to like paint this giant world and do all this complex stuff when we have such a small team right now. We need to rein that in a little bit, and you'll see that in Levea. Smaller area, more dense, more things to do, starting to look at that vision of what we actually want out of Ilysia, what that core loop is going to be, the things that we want to pay attention to. and have those things start to come out and just pay attention to our team size. As popularity comes with the project, not so much in game sales, we're not even really going after that. What we're going after that is interest from going after investments and funding, so we can make the rest of the game. This is not something that we're going to be doing with a tiny team. This requires a lot of people, and we're still working on that vision and delivering to get you guys all to say like, oh, I really see what they want now. I see what they're kind of going after, and that's the shift in our vibe. Paying attention to more of the details, trying to make the game just more fun to play, and like a nice place to even be and hang out and talk and see that vision and see what we're looking for out of the game when it's complete.
And honestly, there's a lot of folks in the chat that are like, "Tell us what we can do to help with monetization." And the main answer to that right now is come play, come interact. Tell us what
Yeah.
sucks so we can make it better. When something sucks, you tell us. I mean, our quick slots, in my opinion, are going to drastically change the way that you guys play the game in ways that we don't know
Yes,
yet.
they will.
Because you're going to have access to all of your consumables and a whole bunch of different weapons right in front of you whenever you want it. And it's going to change the way that everybody plays. It's going to shift the way that things are balanced. And it's probably going to slightly be a little bit of a shit show where everybody gets to mess around and find out. And that's going to be great. And it's going to let us know how we should be adjusting things. We're spending a lot of time right now trying to get the numbers right so that things feel good and feel balanced. That's never going to stop. And I think no matter what, though, we're going to find out that something's not quite how we expected because it's going to change the way people play.
Yeah, exactly. And quick slots is one of those things that is a great example of what we're talking about. Adding quick slots to a game would be like, here's some quick slots that are just in front of you. We didn't want to do that. When we added the quick slots, we wanted to take the time to be like, people are different sizes. People do different things. People play differently. So you'll have your quick slots that sit in front of you. But in the comfort options, you can move where they are, how far apart they are, how far away they are, how close they are. Like people have different heights and different comforts. Like that's the type of thing we're trying to say, that we're slowing down development of just like, make quick slots, or do cooking, or like just how about we do it in a way that is intentional and not just slapping it together. And so that's kind of the vibe that we're going through. And we are tackling these things, little things at a time. Creature comforts, things that we want to make better. You'll notice in Levea that the entire interaction UI for dealing with NPCs has been completely redone. It's actually got a cohesive design. Buttons make sense. It's easy to interact with things. Oh my gosh, a targeting system. The fact that now in the game, and like I know I'm talking a lot about the features that are coming. You guys will see all this stuff. We now have the ability in the game for casters and ranged people and melee when you need it, but mark your target, stay focused on a target, whether it's friendly or whether it's unfriendly. So you can do stuff to a thing on purpose. And in VR, it was like, well, you can't really have tab targeting. You're not using a keyboard. So we have a different system where you control it from your wrist UI. So you can scroll through nearby entities that are either friend or foe in easy columns to understand. We have default auto-targeting, where if you attack something, you're going to auto-target that, but you can move your target. Once you set a target on something in your wrist UI, it will stay there. So exactly like somebody just said in chat, Rune, heal, heal, heal. How do you be a healer in a dungeon if you can't specifically target your main tank and ignore everybody else? Like, these are the basic questions of MMO stuff that just don't exist in Ilysia today, that we're like, why are we trying to just fountain out a bunch of rando content instead of narrowing it down into a play experience that people would expect out of an MMO? So that's, that again just kind of matches more of the vibe that we're going with this whole new area.
Yeah. It's also an opportunity to fix a lot of issues that we had with stability. We're still going to find more. Don't get me wrong. We even just this past week or two, we've discovered some funky things going on with the servers, and we've had to reset them a couple times because players are getting consistently booped out, and that's not fun, especially because there's so many new folks in the server that really want to come play and get this event done in time. So that's, I mean, even with this Christmas update, we're including some new logs that are going to help us figure out what's the root cause of that. We think we know what it is, but we're not certain, so we've got to make some changes to attempt to eliminate it, and then put more things in to try and catch and figure out what's causing the problem. But with all of our other issues in the past it used to be that if you were playing on the Quest 2, it wasn't a question of did I crash? It's, will I crash? It's when will I crash? Because you're going to crash while playing our game. And that sucked. And we've had the opportunity with all of these reworks and changes to go after all of the things that were causing that and really rework the way that we're kind of handling memory management. I mean, even just in the past couple months, you saw that screenshot that the Walking Dad VR posted where he's watching our talk in VR in Ilysia right now. That used to not be a thing. You used to not just be able to open apps randomly while you're also running a game. And that threw us a curveball because suddenly our game is crashing a lot more frequently because anybody can open anything that they want at the same time that they're playing our game. And don't get me wrong, that's a great feature. But we can't account for memory management of other applications, so we now have to clean up and make sure that ours is doing better.
Yep. And but I love the fact that we have mobile VR. The number one device I use, honestly, for all of my Ilysia testing is still my Quest 2. So it is I love my Quest 2. I love my Quest devices. I don't even own a Quest 3. The other developers on our teams have Quest 3s. I don't. So it's and it is hard to manage memory on the lower end of mobile devices. Mobile VR is getting better, but when you have a small amount of memory and the operating system itself and the headset is taking up most of it, there's not much room left for even a game. So it's
so problematic.
It's a tough
We for a while had the internal joke of Drew's headset was just busted and we needed to send him a new one because he would crash so frequently. And really, I mean, your headset's fine. It's just the device. Most of us are testing on Quest 3 or testing in PC, so we don't crash as often. But correct me if I'm wrong. I'm fairly certain you haven't crashed at all in the new updated map. That's the goal.
I would crash every 10 to 15 minutes in Ainur on my Quest 2 standalone. I haven't crashed out of Levea once yet.
Yeah. And the important thing there too is not just it might seem up front that it's just like, we made a smaller map and that's why it's not crashing anymore. And that's not the case. We just added so much more content it's going to negate the fact that we shrunk the map. We've got so much new weapons and armor that are coming in and plan to come in the future. The size of the map isn't the problem. I mean, really, Meta early on in their documentation for the Quest 1 said, don't make an open world game. It's not doable on our platform because they know that it's a challenge to manage memory on Android devices that are low spec on top of VR rendering and all that stuff. So it's a constant challenge that we have to face. And I don't want to say outright we're not going to crash ever again, but I'm pretty damn confident about it.
We're definitely, guys, this is the game, and this is still in development, and it's still an early access title. There are going to be bugs, and you guys are going to crash. We're just trying to do it a lot less often.
But hey, it's not going to be an out-of-memory crash anymore.
No, that's exactly the point. We don't want to crash because of Ilysia, but it's hard for us to have crashes about memory management. But I do see some questions. I'm trying to look over here and scroll the chat as well, and still look at Devin. But I've seen a couple questions fly by about quests being moved or new land. Like the new region is an entirely new region. It is all new quests. It's like what you're looking at behind Devin. That's Levea. That is from the concept art of Levea. That's where you guys are going. It's an entirely different island with new adversaries, new quests, a new main story, new everything. Because what was what we call a region 26 in our developer nomenclature, but Ainur, what you guys know is the current game world of Ainur, is getting broken. Like that's part of the storyline of Balramos is nuking that island. You will make a return to Ainur at some juncture in the main storyline in the future. We have that planned for when you're a much higher level to re-challenge Balramos on his home turf again, and you will not recognize it because it will be a destroyed lava-filled wasteland. And yeah, exactly, people are going to say that you were here, and that's what that title was for. The chance to get that title for Defender of Ainur is nobody will ever be able to get that again because there is no more Ainur after this. Balramos wins and it's destroyed. It becomes a part of the storyline. Ainur you'll be returning to Ainur in future content, yes, but not until I think it was like level 30. I think is when you go back there. I need to remember. And as far as the size stuff goes, the landmass, correct me if I'm wrong, Devin, the landmass of Levea in its entirety is not as big as Ainur, but again, you won't really notice because it still takes a long time to walk around. But there's Ainur's biggest failing to me is there's so many places you walk in the current world. There's just nothing there. Like, what is the point? It's just and you won't get that vibe in Levea. Like the nooks and crannies of Levea. Sure, there's places you can get like on top of mountains and stuff like that there's not much up there. But for by and large, if there's an area to go to that has mobs in there, those mobs are there for a reason. There's probably a side quest at least nearby. There's stuff to do. Yes, the level cap for Ainur, or not Ainur, I'm sorry. The level cap for Levea is 20.
We're gonna start out with 10 for the
So
initial release because we're trickling the
initial
content a
release
little
goes
bit
from
while
1
we
to
finish
10.
up
The
and
second
test it.
release, yeah, for zones 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the journey from 10 to 20.
Yeah.
Yep. But again, more stuff to do. Actual gear. There. Yeah, like how many is there? Like we only have like a 3 or 4 of upgrades of swords in the game right now for this giant landmass of Ainur. Like it's really not that much, and
Our sheer amount of new weapons is kind of staggering.
yeah,
And it's going to take us a while to get everything all in and all set up, and it'll come in more as we introduce crafting as well for blacksmithing and things like that. But we've got a lot of new weapons.
Yeah, there's
I'm
a lot,
very excited.
and new armors, new weapons. We are working on Prey. We're working on the guild system. It's not something that we're focused on right now because not focused on it. It's something that we are working on, but not for this initial first push. We'll bring the guild system in as soon as we finish the guild hall and kind of what we want people to be able to do with it. Again, half-baking features just for the sake that we said, oh, we have guilds. I mean, there's a small version of it coming that we've talked about before, where just the ability to standardly create a guild, so you can display a guild and have a guild, leave a guild, join a guild, that kind of stuff will come sooner than later. But the advanced stuff that we want to do with guild leveling, guild experience, that stuff is still kind of in the kitchen, so to speak.
We are making a lot of changes to the way the friends list works currently, right?
Yes.
Because I know there's UI changes to it, but I'm not on the code
Yes,
side.
there's UI changes. Yeah. Yep. Oh, Zin just said something. Yes, that is true. We fixed the friend system. You're able to search for people, add friends, talk to your friends. That's working now finally. So having that is kind of an important thing.
Yeah.
How do you have an MMO with no friends?
The mini map is finally going to be functioning the way we like. I know. We did release the mini map for Ainur. It does not look good.
No,
it was
especially on mobile. It's another one of those mobile things. Like I don't know if anybody's looked the mini map on mobile, but I'll meet you next to the green blob by the blue pixel is not really a good way to look at it. So we are addressing that. Yep.
Do we want to see those weapons and armors?
You can tease weapons and armors. Go for it, dude.
It's almost like I've had this sitting on my screen the whole time. I'm almost ready for it. Let me make sure I've got everything doing the nice thing. So hey, we've got maces and axes now.
Yes, we do.
For the folks that have been asking for variety on those things. They function as swords. They'll have some different damage types, and they work a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But that's for your melee class.
And you're not going to see all these right away. It takes time to bring in the weapon. Like the art is done on these weapons. Now the models exist, but then they still have to be rigged and set up as weapons. And again, you're looking at a giant chart of weapons that we're using for the theme of Levea. These kind of fit the theme of Levea. Some of it is level 0 to 10. Some of it is the level 10 to 20 stuff. But you will see several of these things appear. And we just wanted to have more weapons. You guys will see some. We are going to do a PTR too, so you guys will see some of this in PTR. But most of a lot of the concept of item quality and doing a better job of that is something we're doing this time. You guys are going to start to see trash drops, more random drops from mobs, stuff that you can vendor, stuff that eventually you'll be able to use as raw materials for blacksmithing, those type of things. But we wanted to be able to I personally think half the fun of an MMO is when you're level 7 and you look like a fucking clown because you're wearing 47 different types of armor and you're just doing it for the stats. That's kind of me. That's kind of the vibe of getting there in MMO. So we just want to kind of support that. You should be able to rely on wearing different types of gear that you find or dropped, and or just have more random stats. We're not really going to do exactly what WoW does with like the bear, of the eagle type stuff. We're coming up with our own thing, but you guys will start to see some of that. There's a bunch of the new armor. You guys will start to see that right away in new models too, man. Like our art style, Devin has done an incredible job working with his team. And half the, we have 3 developers and how many artists?
3.
Yeah, is it 3 including
If I don't
yourself?
count as
Well,
one, it's
you're
3.
a hybrid role. You're half dev, half art. So
Yeah.
it's and it's like a lot of people think we don't give enough credence to the hard work and just what you and Arthur and your guys' team are doing. It's so much work, and I know I've felt like Ilysia hasn't had a cohesive art style among its armor, its gear, its the feeling of it, and it's been wonderful to watch that change. It's been amazing. You guys have done some great work. Yeah. Did we ever put that out?
I think there might have been something similar on Twitter that wasn't the finished one with the pretty background and the depth of field. I did casually drop this in general chat a couple days ago.
Okay, yeah. And those are some of the new Levian armors. As far as somebody asked, Zin said, have you done any new mobs or biomes? I mean, all of Levea is kind of a new biome. As far as new mobs themselves go, we have prettied up. Yeah, we've prettied up the mobs that we do have. The Igara and the Toko still play a role, and so they are going to be coming with us over to Levea. You're going to see them, but they're not the main antagonist. Somebody asked about new models. New models for what? Weapons, or what are we talking about?
I mean, there's a lot of new models for just about everything. I mean, yeah, new models for weapons. There's new models for armors.
Oh, the avatars. No, that is a lift and shift. Okay, that is something we definitely do want to do. We need different avatars. We need avatars that are actually feel different for you to make too, during calibration and during everything else. So that is such a massive undertaking though, that addressing that right now would pretty much shut down everything else.
Every time we talk about it, we're like, okay, do we got 6 months to spend on that? Because it's a lot of work.
Like that, it's hard to articulate how much of a change that is.
Yeah, the entire game is built around the way that things function right now.
Yes. Tara's asking a really important question that I do want to address because I'm not sugarcoating anything. Pet summoning, this is another one of those things. Pet summoning doesn't work the way we want it to do right now. So what we've done is turn it off for the time being until we can redeploy it where the pet animals are actually doing what we want. So those aren't going to be there in the warden class right away. The half-assed, half-baked, this wolf kind of runs around you and then also runs up a hill and runs away and never comes back or just stands there like an idiot is not a good user experience. And it is something we're touching with high priority as soon as we get this initial push out, though, because we do need to bring the pets back. We found out cosmetic pets by accident, though. So that's important.
They just work. They just won't fight.
No teleporting to towns. We've designed, world design is really important. Again, lessons learned. At the parts where there's ways to get back to town quickly, but require you to ride an airship. And when you have a couple, even if you're on the far side of the island, it's not that long of an airship. Because remember the the point of the gliders, for example, and their interaction with the airships, that has been the vision of fast travel for Ilysia. Airships are not like WoW, where you get onto it and you ride, and you see a map and dots and you arrive at a new location, unless you're changing zones or something. But our airships are more like flight paths, but the ability to jump off them anytime you want, as long as you have a glider. And so once you get the glider, that is kind of the intent, where if you want to get someplace more quickly, still ride the airship, but you're free to run off the edge of it and peace out and use your glider to land where you need to land for your objective.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the vibe
Um,
of teleporting. We actually played with something we're going to bring in later, which is again, I'm not spoiling the storyline, but there will be stuff later where you will be able to use magical resources that let you fast travel to things, but only if you have enough of the resource. And part of that will be unlocked and discussed in the storyline stuff. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that right now.
Yeah, and
Devin,
hey,
what else?
Cheranoob, I think fairly certain we fixed the airship shaking. Unless you're still experiencing, then I would be very surprised. But we spent
Yeah.
a lot of time making sure that was smooth. It was part of why we revamped the player controller as well, because the way that was being handled and the player controller were causing a lot of problems.
Yeah.
As far as thrown off the airship, there is an airship currently that is a bit small, and you will fall off of. I've fallen off it a couple times. We're not
Yeah,
going to use
and
that one for
that's funny. Here's another quest thing. Just to be transparent about development, like when you're loading in chunks and there is a delay on mobile, some people have noticed it. I know I've noticed it in my testing, but if you are riding an airship, especially the small one, and you go through a chunk load, sometimes that airship will continue moving in the server code, but you'll blip and then you'll come back in, but you're behind it and you fall down. And that is like those are the irritating issues where it doesn't happen on higher memory devices, but happens on lower memory devices where it's just like, geez, like how do you solve for that? And so these things take weeks and weeks and weeks to figure out, because there's just such edge cases and weird, changing the way we're doing stuff. And we've learned a lot about development. There's been, at one point we had a lot more developers working on this project. I mean, if anybody's been around for a long time knows that at one point we had like 7 or 8 guys in it, in addition to the ones we have now. And that was a trying time for us as a studio, and we had a lot of lessons learned. We took the money we had from our angel investor, and we relied on getting contracted development work in 2021, especially in 2022, and that was a lot of lessons learned. There are a lot of dishonest people out there. We are a 100% remote company, and we lost an insane amount of money to bad faith development, and have had to pay for the price and pick it back up. It's also why we slowed down. We just can't trust the team. Honestly, Devin, you're the best thing that came out of that. You worked for one of those agencies that we hired, and honestly, you've been such an asset to this project that I really appreciate you, man. I'm
It
glad
was a
at
little
least we got you
wild
out of that.
seeing how quickly things turned over. It wasn't fun
Yeah.
to. I think there was a movement. I think there's one on like Reddit or something. I think the Reddit one's a bit of a joke though. Where a lot of people are like, here's how you have multiple jobs and get away with lying about it.
We caught 3 people that signed on for a full-time job and accepted a salary for a full-time job. And they also did that to 4 other people at the same time, because they worked 100% remote and told none of us about the other person. Then when it's time to deliver their stuff, just said sorry and left. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. But we've learned a lot. And I don't know if it was the post-COVID blues or something. I don't know, but just that vibe of those people with those morals seems to have gone away, and so it's
Our
better.
team right now is a lot of really passionate, really solid people. I'm genuinely proud to be working on a team with folks that share the same values and the same passion for
Yes.
VR and for MMOs.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one thing. Everybody here, there's passion here, and I know
Yeah.
you have a ton of passion about it. I think all of our people have a ton of passion. I certainly, I can speak for myself. I I left a 15-year job at Microsoft to come do this, because I believe in this project, and it's kind of this is my dream. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since I was 8 years old. This is what I've always wanted to do, and I just happen to be a business guy at the same time and a
Mhm.
former developer. So it just kind
Yeah,
of
it's funny you
meshes and
say that.
fit.
I
But
was interviewing at Microsoft for a tech art role on what was it, Age of Empires 4? When I got in touch with you guys and started interviewing here, and this shit's way more cool. I
yeah,
mean, I played Age of Empires as a kid, but my parents had a guild for our church group when I was in middle school, and I played with our little Holy
it's
Trinity
awesome.
guild for years. We were just running dungeons, and we were all really freaking bad at the game. I mean, I was dual wielding swords as a hunter and not using the right level guns or the right pets or any of that stuff, and we were garbage. And I was all about dressing my character up and looking as cool as possible. I had a raptor as a pet at one point, but I was bad at the game. And it's cool to finally take that and bring my horrible skills in WoW into a passion for VR MMO development. I
Go
saw
ahead.
we should transition into questions, but I did see a couple that we should go ahead and start with answering. Mostly around when are we actually shipping this thing, and when are we shipping the level 11 to level 20 content after that?
Good questions. So the current target that we're looking at is holiday. We want to get something out for people to play over the break, and that's when we really want to do the 1 to 10 piece. 10 to 20 is because it's on the same area and you're not changing zones. It's going to happen a little bit faster. It's just time consuming for implementation. Placing all the quests, placing all the mobs, placing the NPCs, doing all that stuff. And so I hope that we can do it within a month or two, right after that. Um,
Mhm.
and then, just keep moving on from there. Um, it'll be one dungeon now. Somebody asked me a question about dungeons earlier, and I forgot to mention it right now. You will see, speaking of dungeons in general, I'm going to segue this for a second. Um, we have some mechanics working in Ilysia now that we've been trying to get working for a long time, like abilities to push buttons, pull levers, do things in VR physically that will actually have an impact on what you're doing. We figured that out now, I'm glad to say, and you will see that. The first dungeon in Levea is a return to an existing dungeon that has been upgraded and updated with some of the new stuff that we want in there, like buttons and levers and fixing some of it. I'm not going to say which dungeon it is, but it is content you guys have seen, just modified. Is the first dungeon in Levea. You can expect a dungeon probably every 10 levels or so. And we want them to start getting to be a little more complex. Actually, have some puzzles in it, like not just go combat, 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 boss, done. We want to have more like you have to climb, and there's places where you've got to solve a puzzle, and you've got to maybe find a key. You've got like stuff like that is like you guys got to watch Art make an awesome dungeon on live stream. That dungeon that you saw for the people that watched that was go through all of that dungeon is the first dungeon that's designed with some of these features that we wanted to start adding as its core base, like with that in mind. So the art side of that dungeon is pretty much done, and it's now waiting on the development side to start putting in the implementation of the code for everything that has the interaction stuff in it. So that dungeon will make an appearance, um, but that you're not going to see that one like right away. We're just testing out some of these mechanics and existing stuff first.
Cool. I think it's a good time to transition to the Q&A period of our
Yeah.
feature. I think the way that we want this to work is Melopod is going to y'all will type your questions in the Tavern Talk chat. Melopod, I assume the process is that you're going to read them and screen them, and then are we going to read them? I know in the past I don't know how we want
Um,
to do that this time around.
sure. I mean, thanks to Raceland, who is one of the moderators, I have a small list of things that the community has been asking for pretty frequently.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think I could have done it without them, to be honest, so kudos to them. But
Thank you, guys.
yeah, so we can definitely bring people on stage, but I already have some lists of questions that I've been seeing popping up in the chat and also in the forum channel, and questions, like I said, that came from Racelyn and the community. So
Yeah.
we can start with some let's see, some Kickstarter and Patreon ones, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
Sure.
So, biggest question is, what is the timeline for fulfilling the Kickstarter and Patreon promises, and how are you planning to communicate the progress on those commitments?
Yes. Okay. So the first thing about that we are doing for Kickstarter, Patreon is the keys part. Along with this launch will be the release of the keys. It's been long enough. We need to get people to do get the keys that they're entitled to. As far as like rewards, like some of the more complicated stuff like that, that is stuff that we still want to do when we get closer to like a full 1.0 launch. And you know, again, getting there is going to require us getting there faster is going to require a larger team. So we're going to have to make some hiring. If to do that, we just have to start generating more interest. That's really what it comes down to. Like we we got to get more people. We got to get more people interested in playing the game and spending time in the game. It's not about selling copies. It's just about people playing to let people know that this is something that people actually want, and it's not just a small echo chamber of Discord of the only people that want a VR MMORPG. So once that kind of happens, that's honestly going back to the best way you guys can all help us is just get people in here, get people talking about the game, what they want, and kind of checking it out. Um, so yes, the Kickstarter stuff is stuff we still want to honor, but it's going to come at a time when we have the bodies available and the cycles to do it closer to a full launch.
Yeah, and I want to remind everybody the reason why we limited the keys to begin with is because there is a limited amount of meta keys that we can give out at a time. We
Yeah.
learned about this limitation after the fact, and there is a 500 key limit with a cooldown of 6 months before we can hand out more. And
Right.
so we've communicated with them and tried to work with them on getting more keys to no avail. But 6 months has passed, so it's time to get more out.
Now we
And
got
we
a
do
new grouping of
have,
keys.
yeah, I think we've got a few hundred left from the first pass, and then we'll have another 500. So I think we're fine to open up and let folks redeem their second, maybe even third key, depending on platform. It'll still end up being a first come first serve, and when we run out of quest keys, we're out of quest keys. But as for PC keys, those are infinite. Valve lets
Yeah.
us give out as many as we
Yeah,
want
Valve
at our discretion.
doesn't key block the way that Meta does. That's true.
Yeah, Valve encourages you to generate and sell keys on other platforms. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so next we have, what is the gameplay loop vision?
Traditional MMO, but with the VR vibe. I mean, really, the gameplay loop we need is, and that's why crafting is also important. Crafting kind of plays a big point, in the loop in our minds. Again, it's not a crafting simulator, but it's got to be a viable path forward. So the gameplay loop that we're looking or that we're hoping and working on right now is leveling up through, quests, leveling up through kills, and leveling different professions to get better gear to continue on to tackle the next content. Um, we also have a particular vision for like end of game gameplay, which is the raiding and more group events and that kind of stuff. But really, as far as like anything crazy, special, like crafting stuff, which is the reason I keep bringing it up, is somebody was asking me about this last week. It's like deep crafting and it being the only way to get best gear in the game in VR is not the loop. I don't know where that came from, but that's kind of not the vibe we're going for. We've said from the very beginning that you should be able to stay relevant in this game without having to be a hardcore raider or without having to become an expert crafting type person. So multiple ways to get gear that gets you better in the areas of the game that you care about. We also want to start at some point we're going to have a large economy update, so we can start to introduce more of the player economy stuff. We still want to have a piece of this game for the people that want to do this to be running local stores or running, their own type of shops in addition to just the um, auction house and stuff like that. So that's going to be part of a loop too, where you can be a player that contributes to the economy by running a store. You can be a player that is hardcore raiding, or you could be a player that enjoys crafting. And we want to have everybody be part of kind of the gameplay vibe that they like in that.
Yeah, we I think early on when we were having discussions in the past about various features and our ideology for how we think about solving gameplay problems is enabling players as much as possible without punishing folks for trying different play styles. So we're not going to force you to play a certain way, and we're going to do the best that we can to allow the fun experimentation side of things. And a lot of that comes from, like, if you just want to fish and make really awesome stews with your fish, like, do it.
Go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's your best life. Go do it. If you want to run a blacksmith shop and not do anything else, that's your best life. Go do it. If you want to be a hardcore dungeon raider and you don't care about crafting and you want folks to help repair your gear and upgrade your gear, then they're there for that, and you can go do your fun thing too.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as the core gameplay loop of it's get experience, get levels, get better gear, get to higher level content, repeat. How you get there is the things we want to make more interesting, because that's what we're talking about. But that core loop of an MMO is still our vision, which is the obvious of what a heart of any MMO is.
Cool. Along with that, we have what professions are planned, and is there a timetable for their implementation?
So cooking, that's number one, and that comes with the relaunch, or the launch of Levea. Then next will be blacksmithing, and then that will hopefully have the first recipes in it the second time, but it depends on, again, team size. If we, if we could get one next time, we can hire a single developer to come in and start focusing on just crafting. That would be amazing. So we could get this out faster, because you guys have seen the way we want to do blacksmithing. Again, it's gotta be a mini game. It's gotta, in VR, you gotta do the thing. So use the hammer, use the anvil. That's still what we're doing. So we're starting to lay the groundwork for that stuff. We teased for a while about actually making crafting be something, right, or putting blacksmithing in right now, but having it be where you had to go get all the resources, but you talk to an NPC to craft the gear for you. And we pulled that back because we thought that was just kind of lame. We're not sure if people would enjoy that, and it was off-putting to use a mining hammer to go mine ore and do a bunch of VR stuff to get and acquire ore, and then just hand it to an NPC that gives you a flat menu about what you can make with the ore you've collected. And it just didn't feel right, so we pulled that back. So blacksmithing will be next. We also have alchemy will come after that, and then we'll probably, I think that maybe leatherworking was what was coming after that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember.
Oh, I thought we might be including leatherworking in with blacksmithing.
Yeah, I know we talked about that.
Blacksmithing is like maybe all armors and weapons, but that's also like a big thing because there's like 4 different workstations in there, and 4 different ways to make new things, and all of the items and things like that. It's going to be a heavy lift.
Yeah, and we also toyed with the idea of having 2 different professions that aren't even blacksmithing. It's just armor smithing and weaponsmithing, and you can make all the different types of armors and all the different types of weapons. But tailoring is part of the blacksmithing profession right now, because it makes all the tiers of armor, and that's what we're talking about pulling out to make it a little bit more interesting. Especially now that we figured out the code for advancing the different professions in different ways and unlocking recipes and how that works. People who play a lot of WoW will kind of recognize the feeling of that loop. Orange, green, yellow, red recipes, that kind of stuff, and then working on higher level recipes in regardless of profession, whether it be cooking or blacksmithing, and working those to up your crafting level faster than doing a bunch of the green ones.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention harvesting and fishing.
Yeah. I did
Those are
mention fishing,
technically-
but
Oh,
yeah,
did you?
exactly. Harvesting and fishing are their own mini professions right now that you can get
Yeah.
better at,
Kind of a
and
subclass.
yep, exactly. So you will, as you play in Levea, even at launch, you will notice that as you walk around and harvest things, the gatherables, the food items, your level in harvesting will increase, and we're gonna make more use out of that later.
With the cooking profession, we had a community question in the forum channel from Eten, H-E-T-E-N. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But they had a question regarding whether there was going to be cooking ingredient rarities, as in legendary beasts or whatever level ingredients would require you to be a higher level profession, things like that.
Yes, there is. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, there will be spots, for example, where you won't be able to fish someplace because your fishing level is too low, or you won't be able to pull certain herbs the right way because you're not proficient in harvesting enough to maybe understand the root structure of that herb. Like the point is you won't be able to get the resource.
Yeah. And the rarity of these items themselves, when you
So
get them, will go up with level.
right. But we
Yeah.
also have included like part of our approach to cooking this was like, for example, boar. If you kill a level 2 boar and you later go kill a level 25 boar, they both still drop boar meat. But maybe the cooking recipes, and not maybe, it is, that the cooking recipes you learn later have more complex ingredients, but you're still going to need the boar meat. So it doesn't matter where you get the boar meat from, for example, in that. Whether or not you go to talk to a level 1 person who trades it to you, or you buy it from off the auction house, or you kill a 25 versus a level 2. The point is you need boar meat for one of the very first recipes, and you also need boar meat for one of the last recipes in Levea. So you make a return to earlier content in that regard. So, but what it will be rare is maybe there are certain types of boars, and for example, that drop a specific cut of meat, but those you only see at higher levels. Beans, yeah, we should do that. Buy the can of beans. There is a farmer in zone 2 of the current content, of the new content that's coming, that kind of runs a little market that we should just add beans to his menu and just do something with it. I should probably do that later as a joke.
I found
that's where you
somewhere
get things like
in
flour
our
and barley.
database. In our database exists a helmet that is just a can of beans. And when I say just a can of beans, I don't mean it sits on your head. I mean your head disappears and becomes beans. I was like, oh, somebody's being cheeky. I'm fairly certain that was something that. No, Josh just DM'd me and said he made it. We
Thanks,
need
Josh.
that. We need the Easter egg that, because I know that everybody loves the beans versus sunshine debate, and the fact that we've Easter egged beans everywhere. We need some bean
I wonder
gear.
how many bean-related guilds there are going to be.
They're going to fight over which one is the true beans. Lima beans versus pinto beans, and we're going to have a bean race war.
Did we answer the question, Milo? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, their question was specifically related to both acquiring rare ingredients, but also being limited in cooking those rare ingredients until they were a higher level in the cooking profession. So it kind of goes just hand in hand.
It does go hand in hand. And what limits you on cooking higher level recipes right now is your level in cooking. However, there is a recipe in the game right now that you will see that in order to get one of the ingredients for that requires you, you can only get it from inside the dungeon. So there's that type of content too. So there's one of the recipes specifically you can't cook without a dungeon ingredient.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. We now have, are there new skill trees in development? And if so, what can players expect?
It's a great way to phrase that. There are new skill trees in the development process. You will see the same skill trees at launch. In fact, you're going to see them reduce a little bit, like with the pets being removed, because we're taking things away that don't work. This is again kind of our development priority and our shift in our focus to stay in scope for things. Is what hasn't been working out great for us is just leaving stuff in this game that doesn't work well. So we are redesigning the skill trees actually entirely, and the way you interact with those skill trees. You'll see the pedestal, the standard skill pedestal return. Again, it's a hub city. There's only one pedestal, and everybody will come to use that pedestal. And you'll return to town to use it. We don't have 27 different towns, 27 different pedestals all over, making the game feel empty. So if you need to train your skills, you come back to town. But that is I'm not going to talk about what it's being replaced with, but that is currently undergoing a redesign. For people who played alpha will remember the old skill tree, and we're trying to get back to our roots. I'll just put it that way. More of a grid, more of an expanding tree, and a hub in the skills that you can go outwards and branch from. I mean, the biggest issue with alpha was the fact that it was absolutely not viable for anything past a tech demo. But
It wasn't really an
we
MMO.
liked. Yeah, no, it wasn't. You couldn't. You walk away from somebody, you'll never see him again. But the point is, there are some things that felt really good in alpha that we kind of want to bring back. And the skill navigation and menuing was one of those things.
A question that was shared more or less by Wolfbane and Eartherin. Any updates new specifically to dungeons? Wolfbane asked, I recall seeing more depth to dungeons, specifically Balramos. Should we expect that in this update? Eartherin says, so we get a whole new island. Will there be dungeons? How are they managed?
Yes, there will be 2 dungeons in Levea before you're done with it. For launch, you get 1. You can expect a dungeon about every 10 levels. That's what's in scope for us right now.
Well, and we should clarify, these aren't brand new from scratch dungeons. These are updated, brought back up to speed.
We are starting off with updating existing dungeons that we've already spent time making, like the Choger dungeon, for example, but getting refacelifted, having new mechanics added to it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We do have future dungeons in the works and dungeon gears and all of that stuff. But before that, we need to make sure.
Yeah, like the stuff you saw Arthur making on that live stream.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half the battle. There's a pipeline. Stuff goes from Arthur's world, which is art, over to development, and then into implementation. And like the live stream for the new dungeon was watching the art piece, and now we have to write all the code to support that and then put the implementation stuff in. So the brand new dungeons, I think the first time you're going to see one of those new dungeons is the next zone after Levea, or the next region rather after Levea, which I'm not going to tease yet.
Sounds like a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Yeah.
These are questions related to, I believe, the town hubs. Eartherin asks, will the vendors also sell armor or weapons? And then we have from Exilius, are the mobile caravans still on the table?
I'll talk about the weapons thing first. Yes, there will be vendors with some standard stuff, but most of the new gear comes from mob drops, crafting, and quests, and that's kind of the vibe. I mean, there will be vendors that sell stuff like in the hub town, but also there are vendors that you will encounter in the wilds. For example, there's like the farmer. There's a farmer who's a significant part of a quest line in the second zone who ends up vendoring stuff that you need for like cooking and stuff like that. But you will there is planned to be small settlements that don't have any of those main hub things that you're talking about. Like you won't be a skill trainer there. There won't be crafting stations there. But there might be a random vendor. The Taco Bell is a perfect example of that. The Taco Bell is a standalone special foods item and recipe vendor. So I just teased about the recipe stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that you can expect for vendors out in the world. So will you come across a vendor someplace selling some gear that's appropriate to that zone? Yes. Will you get all your gear from one guy in a hub city? No.
Oh, mounts and caravans.
Yes,
Mounts
yeah.
and
And the
caravans, right?
next
Sorry.
question I was gonna, yeah, is are
Yeah.
someone Dumu had asked, are we still getting mounts? And then also, yeah, the
Yes.
caravan question.
And it will be mounts first. I'm very comfortable saying that. Mounts are the very first thing we want to tackle because a caravan is a mounted home. So caravans won't make an appearance until we figure out the housing and the mount piece together. Again, staying in scope for a small team, we're tackling mounts first because mounts are super important for getting around.
Along with that, we have I believe it was Rune who was saying we need an old frying pan mount.
Okay, noted, buddy.
Shit.
Yeah, we I got corrected by one of our devs yesterday in a meeting. Jason told me basically I can't if I'm going to talk about it, I have to talk about it appropriately, and it's not called a frying pan. That specifically rune has a name in our project. It is the flying pan. So I got hardcore corrected yesterday. So maybe that's not too far off from a joke mount because it is there.
It's amazing. I
Jason's
think
our
someone
pun and
else
dad
wanted it
joke
as a
guy.
glider.
It's a glider. Oh no.
Yeah, spider. Bong. There will be more gliders. You'll get to see new gliders cosmetically. Where they don't change function, but for people that are tired of looking up at their blue glider, you will start to see different skins you can get for your glider.
Let's see, we have Rune again who asked, will there be in the social hubs, will there be any gambling? And I think they mean like tabletop card games, that kind of thing. But that kind of an idea of social games.
Betting on token races.
So just that's actually I wasn't going to talk about this. So gambling and stuff and card games, no, but there's going to be something you're going to see that's coming in Levea that is the beginnings of us having that conversation. Things to do while you're just hanging out. Like if you're waiting for your party to show up or you're sitting in town at a tavern, just, chit-chatting or whatever with people, there are world interactables now. And you'll start to see those. The first one of those you're going to see is just a ball. Like a ball, like and toss back and forth between people and roll on the ground. And then we started talking about, well, what about throwing axes? And what about dart games? And so we've started to talk about the kind of stuff to pass the time. Just things you can do that feel good in VR while you're waiting for other people. Is Ilysia going to be a game about cards and darts and bowling? No, that's not the purpose of an MMORPG. Do we want to have some things for you to do for small activities in town while you're waiting because this title is in VR? Yes, we do want that. That is one of those things that we want to have happen. So you'll start to see the beginnings of that piece of our vision, again, bringing a smaller scope. Yes, it's only the first 10 levels, but we're starting to try and do more and stay in scope of our team to show you guys what the vision is that we have. Like, look, what we did with what we're going for here is the vibe of look what we can do with 3 developers. Imagine if we had more. So that is kind of the magic that we're working with here. So you will start to see now the idea of a full-on card game. I personally like there. Does anyone remember those old Quest for the Glory type games and like the Robin Hood and King's Quest style games? And I loved how they had their like own internal games that were part of the game, like whether it was a coded card game or like a board game. I always personally have thought that was really neat, and that's one of those things like God, if we had the time, I'd love it if Ilysia had a custom card game or board game that could only that you could only play it really in Ilysia and you do it in the taverns. There has always been something I've personally thought would be incredible to do, but I think there's an entire game to make first.
Yeah,
like,
we can add
as
Gwent to the
MMO.
game once we've made the rest of the Witcher.
Exactly. Yeah, staying in scope. Now, old Team 21 would have been like, hell yeah, Gwent or Ilysia.
We made
Gwent,
a card
whatever.
game.
Let's
Check
do
it out in our MMO.
Yeah, let's go make half a card game and implement it just so we can show you guys that we want to do a card game. That thinking and methodology has not worked out very well for us, and so we're pivoting our how we are approaching development for stuff.
We have from Demethal, I guess there was some mention of stat points upon leveling at some point. They're asking if and when that would be implemented.
Well, you said that because they should stay out of our dev meetings. So we were actually just talking about that last week. Right now, we are electing to leave yes, our engine supports stat distribution and leveling up in that. We are finding that incredibly hard to balance right now with the work on skills and stuff. And so we're kind of tackling those one at a time. We're leaving it alone right now. So stat distribution at this juncture is still not something we're going to offer the player control, but it's still in scope for the vision.
Yeah. Instead, your stat distribution will come from the gear you choose to wear and the weapons you equip.
Yeah.
Got it. So
At least for now.
We have from Neon Skittles PvP.
PvP, yes, is something that is still coming. Everybody on the team believes that PvP is an important part of the gameplay loop. It is. We could just turn it back on again. Like PvP is actually in our game. It's just so damn buggy that it's disabled.
It was.
And
It
again,
didn't
we don't
get all
just want
the
to
other
turn it back
testing
on.
that other things did.
Yeah, I mean, we
It
could
was
spend.
fun to see the spell interactions.
That is true. Yeah, we could turn it back on and have a shit show of potentially server crashing bugs, or we can wait to implement PvP when we have time. And again, new shift, new focus. PvP is something we want to bring back. You can expect it to come back. I don't have a time to tell you when. It depends on how fast we find more developers and how fast we can get the other core loop features in.
And I have, let's see. I saw some mentions earlier in this stage chat. Is there going to be any availability of PTRs for testing updates, etc.?
Yes, we are. The PTR. You guys will see a PTR between now and the release of Levea, and we are still targeting the release of Levea for holiday. So hopefully we'll have a PTR up here within a couple weeks. I'll tell you that we're pretty close. There's still some bugs that the last three PTR build. I'll just be transparent. The last three PTR builds that we have made, our internal quality testing has found something that stops progress within 20 or 30 minutes of play, and so we're kind of finding out what we need to find out right now. And as soon as we can get farther than that, for just mechanics and stuff, like right now there's a big bug with item interaction because we changed the way items interact. You're gonna like one of the things you'll see in Levea, and people that have wanted a real tutorial, that happened, by the way. So that's another one of the things we spent time making. When you make a character in Levea now and you're gonna get, an actual like tutorial with tutorial pedestals that explain how to play this game, what to do with your inventory, how to use your quick slots, how to do basic combat, and you go through this quick thing. And one of those things was like, take the sword off the table, and so you can reach out and grab the sword now. But that was an entirely new way of writing item interaction. As you know, in Ilysia, you hover over something and you pull the trigger and it goes to your backpack, and then you have to get something out of your backpack. That to us isn't very fun in VR. So it should go to your hand. But that changed the entire way item interaction and stuff going to your hand, because your hand is not an inventory slot. It's a equipable slot, basically, for all intents and purposes. A lot of code had to be changed for that. And so we ran into some bugs that we're dealing with right now where PTR would be kind of useless at this point until we iron out some of that grabbing stuff. But we're very close. And so I expect that you can see a PTR here in the next few weeks. And we need to have one before launch anyway. The PTR will not be all of it. It's going to be focused on the features that we need testing. So some of the storyline, not all the quests will be in, probably not all the side quests, and just maybe the main line leading up to the dungeon. We'll have you guys test the dungeon mechanics, but we'll have a lot of stuff disabled because what we need testing on is things like the quick slots, item interaction, getting around the map, some of the new quest types, the harvesting, the cooking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
it'll also
yes,
be helpful.
PTR. Yeah.
Some folks were like, "Hey, what about mobs getting stuck in things?" We're catching that as much as possible. Mobs are you'll see some of the same mobs, but they've been completely rebuilt so that we can kind of eliminate some of those hitboxes and like weird getting stuck on problems in the environment. And that's the whole point of the PTR, is if you spot that shit broken, take a screenshot, tell me where you were. We're going to go look at it and fix it as fast as possible. That's the goal.
Yep.
Big
and
major
combat
disclaimer
in
that PTR is
general,
broken, and that's the point.
yeah, and in our mind too, the point of a PTR is to be buggy and broken and find stuff. Crash it, please. As far as combat is a big question though, like in general, combat still is in desperate need of love. Actually, what's more in need of love is why combat feels bad, and it's about also mob interaction, and so the things that the AI can do. And an example of this is we tried to make mobs more interesting by retrofitting some AI quickly to make the mobs disengage from you, attempt to flank you, stuff that we talked about in the last updates, which after a while ends up not working the way we wanted to. And so sometimes mobs will, and it's not even sometimes, most of the time, a mob will see you and they will run towards you, but they'll run through you, and then they'll run around you, and then maybe in the middle of combat, they're just like, well, I'm bored, and they walk away. So again, that was one of those things where we're like, wow, that didn't work out the way we wanted it to, so we're going to spend more time on this. And we actually we reverted that. You won't see that in the new Levea. They're not going to be running around like crazy. Have we replaced that with something 10 times better? Nope, because we're still trying to get the core of Levea out. But combat is one of those things that requires mob setup, and by mob setup I mean animations. You can code a mob to do a million cool different things, but if you don't have the animations to go along with those million things and the timing isn't right on those, it looks and feels like crap. And so we actually don't have an on-staff full-time animator. One of our developers has a degree in animation, but we keep having to pivot. Like, are you being a developer today, or are you being an animator today? And that's, again, small team blues. So as soon as we can get more people here and interested in vibing on this project, so we can say like, hey, people really want this, let's get some more cash and go after hiring people. A full-time animator would change Ilysia in just as much in combat as rewriting melee code. And we'll get there. It's something we care a lot about. I am a 100% tank player. I'm melee all the time. I do enjoy some range combat. My bread and butter in every MMO I ever played is melee, and so I feel it with you guys. Like, it is not my favorite thing ever, and it's something that we do drastically want to get better at with that and change.
I've run out of questions on my lists, but I do have one from, I believe it was Note, and Daisuke had the same question in the chat here about weather affecting spells. So like rainy weather having a boost on lightning spells, stuff like that, environmental boosts.
Haven't thought about that. Interesting concept. That'd be kind of neat.
Okay, well, my lists are exhausted. I don't know if we can kind of just open it up to whoever's in here.
Is that from all the listo updates, or list of questions? I know people did a bunch. Is that all like the top upvoted questions?
Yeah, that I pulled up, but I can dig through and see as well. But
why don't we just take 10 minutes or so? If anybody else has any questions, we're a little bit over time, but and just kind of maybe watch the chat. Does somebody really loudly feel like they didn't get something answered, then please let us know.
I've heard hitboxes asked by many people. That kind of goes back
part
to
of that.
The mob discussion.
That's the melee stuff I'm talking about, literally. We are fixing the hitboxes on the mobs to make them appropriate, but a lot of the jankiness and the feeling with the hitboxes, because hitboxes means two different things to me. Hitbox means the position I'm hitting the monster in on itself. So whenever my sword is going to interact on that mob, but it also means like multiple hitboxes and having not just a block around the mob, but having a hitbox for their torso and a hitbox for their arms, and have that do different things. One of the combat dummies that's in the game even right now is the only mob in the game that has multiple hitboxes. And that's because we're gathering telemetry and data from it and checking stuff out. But that's all towards the the overhaul that we're still attempting to make on this stuff. But
In
again, we don't
progress.
want to. Yeah, it's baby steps, man. Like we're working on getting there. Combat is probably one of the most complex things to do in VR, but it's also one of the most important and one of the things that just has to feel right. We made archery feel a little bit different. You'll notice that arrows move faster now. Um, bows actually flex when you bend them, so you get more visual feedback when you're shooting an archery. And that just playing with some of that stuff and dialing that stuff in kind of helps with the vibes. Archery just hasn't felt right. Um, and a lot of that isn't that the code isn't there. It's just it's not polished. So we took some time polishing it. Um, and our intent is to add functionality and polish melee as well.
Someone asked, will our stats be reset during official release?
Yeah, I don't like big sweeping player wipes. So I hope we can avoid another one of those for launch, and then things will just transition in. We're again with the approach of what we're doing, Lavea, the tutorial, the reason, like this is the story beginnings that we're going with for launch. What you saw in Anor right now is not the story that was intended. It was still the beta story or the alpha story. Um, this transition into Lavea is more going down the road of the actual narrative arc that we want for launch. So our intent is not to kind of reset it because we're not changing starting zone stuff again.
Yeah, we don't want to reset things. Also, though, we're very early in development. We're going to be adding a whole bunch of new things. And while we can say at the moment guaranteed that we don't want to, we can't promise that we won't because we don't know yet.
Right. I'm watching questions fly through the chat now. Let's see. Walking Dad, any plans? The way the mobs die and just disappeared. Mobs are going to be despawned because of memory and network load. So we're not just going to leave mobs around. When you kill a mob in Ilysia, it will shrink and eventually just disappear off the ground, leaving its loot behind. You're going to see more. We need to revamp the. Right now, our loot system is still the default free for all that we wrote. We are going to actively be changing that to the personal loot system. So what drops for you is yours, and no more running and panicking and trying to grab the gear before somebody else does. We're working on more drop model stuff too, like right now when you kill a boar and it drops the raw meat, you'll actually see a piece of raw meat on the ground that is not a square tile that's sitting there sparkling. It's an actual chunk of raw meat on the ground that you can laser up to you and put in your backpack or do whatever with. We're working on some more of that type of stuff. In general, like when armor drops now, it's a leather bag on the ground. And then if you hover over the leather bag, it will tell you what's inside the bag. And again, it's more, we're trying to get away from this chunky, weird looking tiles. The only place you're going to see these tiles that you see in like the current loot right now is when you've taken something and it's sitting in your backpack inventory, it will be an icon representation. But when you grab something out of your backpack, it's going to change to the actual 3D game model of that item. So if I see an icon for a bushel of herbs in my backpack, but I grab the icon, I'm instead going to be holding a bushel of herbs, tied together in my hand. And if I throw it on the ground, it will be a bushel of herbs on the ground. Getting away from this weird flat UI type of thing for drop models and stuff. Kind of a segue off of what Walking Dad was asking, but yes, the items will still be on the ground. We are going to work on personal loot. It's not in there right now. Mobs do need to despawn for memory management reasons. This isn't, a client side, thing where we can just have infinite dead bodies everywhere. It just doesn't work out that way. What else?
Lethal had a number of questions about skills specifically, but the question that they are asking more often is, how is skill leveling speed going to be implemented? Do you want each skill to be fast maxable once learned, or rather make skills leveling a long journey as with character leveling?
No, we still want to have access to skills be gated by skill points you get from leveling and other sources. The and other sources is an important thing there. We don't think leveling should be the only way to get a skill point. Um, so whether it be quest rewards or reading hidden books or that kind of stuff is stuff that we've talked about. But skill progress is still going to be determined based on the number of points that you invest to march down whatever tree that you feel like doing. I mean, since we are still open class, you can take a bunch of lower level skills. You could really hyper focus on one skill tree, um, but yeah, still gated by number of points you have available.
They also wanted to know, do you plan on making it possible to reset your skill points at any point?
You can do that today, and yes, we are keeping that. If you visit a skill trainer in Ilysia in the live version today, there's a reset skills button, and it is going to stay there. There's some bugs around it. It's not the number one fix that we have found for it breaking, and I've had it break on me, is to log in and log out and log back in and try again. There are some bugs though that require a database reset, and we're handling those when they come in. We
Yeah,
are aware of the problem, and it is something that we're looking at.
I'm fairly certain we've found the cause, and the only reason why we haven't fixed it now is because it's going to get fixed in the Levea update. And right now, the best way to solve it is to, if you've got the issue, let us know. We'll manually reset your character. Just tell us your character name.
So the thing that perma breaks you exactly right now on skill stuff does have a fix in the branch for the launch of Levea.
Yeah.
Backpack ease of use. There is are you talking like we made the zipper easier to use on the bottom. That's a change. We still have it where you can use the button to bring up the backpack and put it away or walk away from the backpack. You don't have to grab it off your shoulder. We're also, one of the things that's not in there right now, but not in the current version of quick slots. What we're talking about is a quick add button in the basically, if you look down, there's a small circle that has an icon of a backpack on it, and if you grab something off the ground, you don't want to go get your backpack, you can just drop it into the quick slot that will basically store it in your backpack for you. So we want to make the backpack easier to interact with. The thing that pissed me off the most about the backpack is interacting with that zipper. It seems to have the oddest grab point in the world. And then moving to pagination as well. So instead of being a scrolling with the zipper, which is awkward, actually, moving the zipper to different positions that have pages of inventory. And then inventory management is something we're redoing as well with the use of filters. So show me only weapons, show me only armor, show me only quest items. And that will be easy buttons along the top that you can sort your backpack or view your backpack on a filtered status to help get through your gear faster.
Yeah. Note asked, will bows still remain locked, being unable to use other weapons? And that changes with the quick slots, correct? Because we now have the quick slots. We've also got the
Hold a
ability
bow and
to
a sword at the same time and fire a bow while holding a sword? No. So yes, bows are still a two-handed weapon, require other hand to be empty to draw back the string. But now when you look down, the way our quick slots are going to work is you have your two shoulder slots and you have your two hip slots. And they're representative in the icons that you can see. Two-handed weapons only fit in the outside shoulder slots. So you can store a bow and eventually a two-handed sword if you want to. And your middle two slots that are, when you look down below, that are on the side of your consumables are your basically your hips. So small items fit there: wands, melee swords, that kind of stuff. Shields only fit in the back slot
right now. Yeah, they're shields, bows, staves as we add them.
Yeah, shields, bows, stabs, that stuff. Those, and basically anything large only fits in back slots. But we removed grabbing things from your hips and shoulders manually right now in favor of the quick slots, but we're playing with the idea of getting it from either. So if you reach down and you want to get something out of a shoulder slot in your quick slot, you can reach into the quick slot and grab it, or simply reach over your shoulder and grab it, and it will get the item out of that position in the quick slot. That's more polished stuff that we're looking at. What we were more interested in doing right now is making the quick slots work, because it's much less of a pain in the ass to use in VR.
Apparently someone suggested physically taking your backpack and shaking it to sort it.
Oh, that's cute.
Ooh. Yeah, I like
I
that.
mean, you can jostle the hell out of that thing. So, yep.
Yeah, we've had many internal discussions about what do we do with this backpack. We're gonna need sorting and all kinds of other different things that we need to add to make it suck less to use. Because inventory management is important in an MMO, but it is not fun in a VR game.
No.
And we have a question from Zin asking, can we get more variety of music and or music that changes with times of day and town?
Our engine now supports changing music with time of day and changing music with location. Again, many hats. It's about finding time to polish that stuff. We actually have an enormous library of music. I'm not sure if anybody has found or been shared to Art's Spotify of all the music he's ever made for Ilysia. Art was live streaming a lot of that for a long time, and everybody may or may not know Arthur is actually a musician as well, and so he makes good music. And yes, we want to plan to show off a lot more of it.
It's almost been 2 hours.
Yes,
So
I
we
think
should
that's probably good.
It's been a long Tavern Talk.
Yeah. You know what? The funny thing is, I feel like we just started this, which just reminds me that I enjoy these. I like answering these questions, and I want to do this more often. And I feel like I say
Yeah,
that
it's a
every
lot of
time,
fun.
and then we disappear for a month, and everybody hates us, um, and thinks that we disappeared. I can say with absolute confidence, um, I know that it's asking you guys to take our word on it, but we're never disappearing. We never have disappeared from this because of a lack of interest or that we're not working on something or something died or something is dead or dying. Um, we have everybody on our team is extremely passionate about this. This literally is our full-time jobs, and it is something we are not doing for the pay. For most of us, there isn't any, to be frank. As far as, I mean, none of us in the leadership positions are even taking any money of note at all. We save our money that we do have for people like Devin who are making our game. Um, this, if we're being quiet, it's because we're super busy, and I will do a better job about being more communicative to everybody and letting you guys know what's going on. It's literally just because there's 24 hours in a day and 48 hours of work to do. So it is, and it's all, honestly, it's always that kind of constant vibe. So you guys are important though, and we recognize that. We talk about it. I feel like we say this a lot, and especially working with Mel and Alex, and getting the constant reminders from people in Discord does help too. So we'll just try and do this at least. Like I said, you guys had tossed the idea of us doing this at least once a month, and I think that's a good idea, even if it's short. I think you guys would rather hear from us to say like, "Yep, this is what broke this month," or "This is what we're working on," instead of not hearing anything at all. And like I said earlier at the beginning of this call, like we've relied more on just typing something quickly into Discord and being like, "We're alive," and then leaving. And that's awesome for the 5 people that saw that happen. Not so much for the vibe of people who are, happen to be at work or didn't log in. So we're cognizant of that. We'll do better.
Yeah, and for the record, me and Alex and Katya, we do poke the team to keep in contact with you guys. So
Yep.
And sometimes, like, and I apologize to you guys as well, because sometimes we're like, "Where are they? Like, why aren't you answering the fact that you need to?" Yeah, like, it's just chaos, constant chaos.
no, but it's
Um,
good. It's been getting better. So
we're trying.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm there now too. You can poke me too.
we'll do.
Yeah. Number one thing though is appreciating the support of the community. It's been almost 2 hours, and I still see a room full of people here. And that makes me happy. It's like you guys actually care, and I know you wouldn't be here if you didn't care. And that does mean a lot to us. So thank you. We're doing this for you guys. We're doing this for us. We're doing this for everybody that wanted this game. And we're still 100% in it. So we're gonna keep chugging along. And I'm excited for you guys to try the new update. I'm excited for you guys to get into PTR, and I'm excited for what's coming.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming, you guys, and
Yeah, absolutely.
we'll do
Okay.
this again soon.
And thank you, Devin. And thank you, Mel. Yep. All right. Take care, everybody.
Peace out, gamers.